Stop scrolling through unfinished manhwa that leave you on a cliffhanger for 3 years. Every single title on this list is 100% complete. Full story, real ending, zero waiting. These are ranked by my channel's own scoring system, so let's get straight into it. Number 10 on our list is I Became a Swordsmanship Instructor at the Academy. A failing web novelist drops dead at his desk and gets one wish from the underworld. He doesn't pick the main character, he picks Kong Shin-hyuk, a total extra who's destined to become the hero's future teacher. His plan? Coast through life using his knowledge of the plot to mooch off the protagonist's power. Simple, right? At first, I thought this was just another I know the future gimmick, but what surprised me was how much the found family teacher dynamic carries the back half. Shin-hyuk keeps trying to slack off, and the story keeps dragging him back into danger, and honestly, watching his lazy plans blow up in his face never gets old. Fully complete, and it earns a solid 8.1 expert points. A fun, low-stakes power fantasy that never quite reaches greatness, but never wastes your time either. Number 9 on our list is insanely talented player. 6 years after monster-filled towers nearly ended humanity, Yusong Kang has saved the world more times than anyone can count. So when a reporter asks why he keeps risking his life, he says on live international television, "I'm just in it for the money." That's the whole tone of this series in one sentence. I'll admit the early chapters lean hard into the comedy, and I wasn't sure it could balance jokes with actual stakes. What really won me over was how the power system escalates without losing that sarcastic voice. Yusong stays hilarious even when the fights get genuinely terrifying. It wrapped with a satisfying finale, and I'm giving it 8.6 expert points. The comedy timing is elite, though a few side arcs drag the middle. Number 8 on our list is The Last Adventurer. The era of adventure crushed everyone's hope. Gates spawned monsters, cities fell, and one by one every adventurer gave up, except Elpom, who refused to quit even at the edge of death. Now, after the story everyone thought was already over, The Last Adventure returns to where it all began. At first I thought this was just another strongest hero comes back setup, but the framing here is different. This isn't a regression, it's a genuine return, and the weight of everything Elpam's already lost makes every fight hit harder. The art during the flashback sequences is some of the most emotionally devastating I've seen in the genre. Complete at a tight, well-paced length, this one earns 8.7 expert points. The payoff is huge, but newcomers need a chapter or two to adjust to the melancholic tone. Number 7 on our list is Trait Hoarder. Junsu spent way too many hours grinding a pay-to-win hero collector game called Arcane Soul. Right as he finally pulls the ultimate SS rank character, a truck ends his real life. He wakes up as Jeonsa Kim, a nobody tutorial character, but with one insane advantage: he can learn any skill in the game. What really surprised me here is how the gacha game logic actually matters for strategy, instead of just being flavor text. Junsu isn't overpowered from page 1, he's smart, and watching him min-max his way through danger using knowledge, only he feels genuinely clever, not just lucky. Fully finished with a clean, earned ending, this one gets 8.8 expert points. The gamer brain problem solving is the best part of the whole series. Number 6 on our list is I Grow Stronger by Eating. Mr. Kim, nicknamed Pet Shop, has one weird power. He absorbs the abilities of any creature he eats. One day he gets yanked into a world crawling with orcs, trolls, and monsters most people would run from. Pet Shop sees a menu. Now he's climbing the food chain, one meal at a time. At first I thought the concept sounded goofy, almost too simple, but what got me hooked was how creative the power combinations get. Every new monster he eats changes his fighting style in a way that actually feels earned, not random. It's complete, and the payoff of watching an unassuming guy become an apex predator is deeply satisfying. I'm giving it 8.9 expert points. The art during the eating transformations alone is worth the read. Number 5 on our list is Ice Lord. At just 20, Master Swordsman Seol Mudok becomes Lord of the Northern Sea Ice Palace. Then his lover dies, and grief nearly breaks him, until he learns the legendary Lotus of Love can bring her back reincarnated. His search sends him crashing into an entirely different world. I'll admit the early chapters play like a fairly standard wuxia romance, but what really surprised me is how dark and layered it gets once Mudok starts questioning what love even means after everything he sacrificed. The martial arts choreography is stunning, and the emotional core never feels like an afterthought. Complete from start to finish, this one earns 9.0 expert points. gorgeous art, a genuinely tragic core, and a finale that actually sticks the landing. Number 4 on our list is Bloodhound's Regression Instinct. Yon was brainwashed into being the Emperor's loyal weapon. When he finally realizes he's been used, he tries to take revenge and gets crushed for it. But instead of dying, he wakes up back in his own past, back when he was just a soldier in training, with everything he knows about the future still intact. At first, I thought this was a straightforward revenge regression story, and honestly, so did I going in. But what surprised me was how much time it spends on Yon's fractured identity. Is he getting revenge, or is he trying to save the family he never got to have? That internal conflict makes every decision feel heavier, complete, dark, and emotionally brutal in the best way. It earns 9.3 expert points. The psychological depth here outclasses most regression manhwa on the market. Number 3 on our list is Heavenly Demon Reborn. Eun-seong watches his master get beaten to death over a false accusation of practicing forbidden demonic arts. He fights back, fails, and dies right alongside him. Fate isn't done with him, though. He wakes up as a child again, this time training to become an elite soldier in the very demonic sect his master was falsely blamed for serving. I'll admit I went in expecting a generic revenge cultivation story, and what really surprised me was how morally messy it gets. Eun-seong has to actually become the thing his master was accused of being, and the story never lets you forget the cost of that. The action is relentless, but the guilt underneath it is what makes this special. Fully complete with a phenomenal ending, this one earns 9.5 expert points, one of the most emotionally complex revenge arcs in the entire genre. Number 2 on our list is The Legend of the Northern Blade. For generations, the Northern Heavenly Sect protected the world from the evil Silent Night. Then the sect leader is framed for treason and forced to disband everything, sacrificing himself to save his son, Muon. Alone and watched constantly, Muon escapes into the mountains to secretly master his family's forbidden techniques and comes back for blood. At first, I thought I knew exactly where this was going, but what really surprised me was the sheer scale of the world building. Every faction, every rival, every training arc feels essential instead of like filler. The art is consistently some of the best in modern martial arts manhwa, and the pacing rarely drags even across a long run. Completely finished with an ending that earns every tier, it scores 9.8 expert points. This is about as close to perfect wuxia storytelling gets. Number 1 on our list is The Greatest Estate Developer. Civil engineering student Suho Kim falls asleep reading a fantasy novel and wakes up inside it as Lloyd Frontera, a lazy, drunk noble whose family is buried in debt. Most isekai heroes get a sword or a system. Suho gets blueprints. He starts using real engineering knowledge to literally rebuild his family's fortune from the ground up. I'll admit the concept sounded almost too niche at first. How do you make architecture and city planning exciting? What really surprised me is that it works flawlessly. Every invention, every building project ties directly into character growth, politics, and the looming threats Suho already knows are coming. It's smart, it's wholesome, and it's endlessly creative. Complete with a finale that ties every thread together perfectly, it earns a perfect 9.9 expert points. Genuinely the most unique complete manhwa on this entire list. That's the full list. 10 complete manhwa, 0 cliffhangers, all ranked and scored. Drop your favorite from this list in the comments and tell me which completed series I missed. I might just cover it next.